Hi, my name is Katelyn Thompson, and this is my final oral presentation reflection for the Multicultural Gifted and Talented Education course. Throughout this semester, I've achieved several course objectives, but two goals that I am very excited to have accomplished include the following. One, recognize prejudice and oppressive institutional structures in education that marginalize gifted students from culturally diverse backgrounds, specifically race, class, gender, and language issues. And the second, analyze the influence of culturally unresponsive environments on the psychological, social, and emotional development of culturally diverse students in gifted programs. First, I felt the position papers I wrote really helped me digest a lot of the information I'd learned so far about prejudice and racial inequity in our schools. My position papers also forced me to use my newfound knowledge capital to pave a road and map out a direction for my own personal work. Working at a predominantly Black and Hispanic school with embarrassingly low gifted and talented enrollment and a front row experience of racially and equitable gifted identification practices, I am now prepared to address these matters as a soon-to-be specialist teacher leader. Another area of learning that I feel I have achieved heightened understanding and realization is the matter of culturally responsive teaching and how the absence of this model does a complete disservice to minority students, especially students at my school and particularly gifted students. Psychologically, without culturally responsive teaching, these children are essentially undervalued, and as a result, their own racial and cultural identity development will be more difficult as they're taught that their identities are never going to be as valued as the white students next to them. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, emotional, intellectual safety and feelings of belongingness must be established before a student can build a positive self-concept as a learner. Culturally responsive teaching helps build these foundational needs up to help culturally and linguistically diverse students have this success. Another reason culturally responsive teaching is crucial is that the minority gifted child whose gifts and talents are manifested in non-traditional ways will likely remain unidentified by teachers who focus on traditional intelligence and score-centered understandings of giftedness, or in other words, teachers who are culturally unresponsive. Furthermore, culturally diverse students will come to school with unique social and emotional needs related to their cultural backgrounds and differences from the dominant culture. Culturally responsive teaching can help respond to and meet these needs, but the lack of culturally responsive teaching will only deepen the gap between these populations' social and emotional needs and their needs being met. Many will lose interest and motivation in school, succumb to underachievement, fail to have talents and giftedness recognized, and perhaps even drop out of school early. They may face depression, anxiety, social isolation, self-doubt, among other terrible psychological stressors. All of these negative impacts are likely to develop into major roadblocks for culturally and linguistically diverse gifted students. As for my final plans moving forward, I narrowed down an area for growth and an area for change. First, my area for continual growth deals with self-reflection, and second, something I would like to change in my professional career would be to become a facilitator of courageous conversation in my school. This course and overall graduate program has forced me to step beyond my own convictions and perspective and hold everything I believe in question. I have undergone this period of self-reflection over my own biases and teaching practices as they relate to my culturally and linguistically diverse students and their multicultural needs. This experience this semester has been especially transformative for me as a white teacher. Nevertheless, I believe self-reflection does not just happen once, but must be an ongoing practice and continual area for growth. I must regularly re-examine and self-reflect on my own biases. Even though I have awoken to many of them through this course and program, simply being aware of them isn't enough. The process of eradicating them isn't a single waking moment, but a progressive growing in my daily consciousness. As I look towards growth in this area, I remember that I have to continue to question my own white dominant worldview and how it impacts my teaching, especially with the majority culturally linguistic diverse students in my class. One of my favorite focuses this semester has been the concept of courageous conversation. As an introvert, I often shy away from controversial topics of conversation in the workplace, yet I have a strong passion for social justice, especially when the social injustice is impacting my kids. I would like to make the change this year of avoiding serious matters of conversation to starting them. I may be an introvert and more reserved at times, but I am certainly not shy. I rather enjoy ruffling feathers of friends and family through some controversial conversations, but I need to begin applying this in my professional life with teachers, counselors, and administrators in my school. Knowing that others don't like how some controversial topics can be brought up in very aggressive ways, I have come up with some strategies to break the ice on these issues in more subtle ways that may be easier for colleagues to receive without putting them on the defensive. One of these ways is to start by asking questions that get them thinking rather than questions that come off as accusations. I believe it is particularly crucial to introduce the issue of racism in a non-threatening way that invites colleagues to join in my advocacy for racial equity instead of making them feel blamed or criticized. Some conversation prompting questions I've developed include, how well do you relate to your racially and culturally diverse students? What do you think are the primary differences between white, Black, and Hispanic students? Why do you think there are so few minority teachers here? How could we benefit from a more diverse teacher faculty? Have you ever noticed that racially and culturally diverse students are outperformed on achievement tests by white students? Why do you think this is? And have you ever wondered why Brumby's gifted enrollment is 1/3 that of the state average? We all know that change does not happen from a single moving part, but from a collective force. Thus, networking and collaborating are essential for making our schools more equitable. I personally would like to build these connections with two sources. First, I'd like to establish an internal connection with the counselors in my school. And second, I'd like to reach out and develop an external connection with an organization outside of my school, particularly one I came across called Speak Out. My school has 1,000 students, predominantly Black and Hispanic. We have 3 full-time counselors, and all 3 counselors are African American. Yet all of the classroom teachers, for the most part, are made up of white females. I believe these counselors, who are all respected and revered by the rest of faculty, play a powerful, influential role in regard to matters concerning our school and students. They are advocates for the needs of our students, most of whom live in poverty and many who are homeless. They also work tirelessly to meet the social emotional needs of all of our diverse students. Nevertheless, one area that the counselors have yet to focus on is the area of gifted education in our school. We need advocates for gifted education because in our failing school, the focus is almost entirely on struggling students, and gifted and talented students go unnoticed. I think if I team up with counselors and share what I know and learn about the issues of underrepresentation and issues of race in education, especially with policies for testing and the biases of white teachers, which my school is flushed with, I can recruit them to help me and our current gifted teacher to advocate for these kids and changes in our school. I can also learn from them, being that they are culturally diverse themselves. Speak Out is a national nonprofit organization that educates and inspires people to become activists for social justice. It is committed to social, political, cultural, environmental, and economic justice, and it encourages critical and imaginative thinking about domestic and international issues through artistic and educational forums nationwide. Speak Out does everything from promoting speakers, performers, scholars, artists, exhibits, and films that represent a breadth of social and political movements. They publish and distribute educational materials and diversity resources. One that I came across was lessons about a documentary concerning race relations and racism in North America. It's called The Color of Fear. This organization also produces community and campus events, and it organizes workshops, trainings, and educational institutes to strengthen social justice organizing at high schools, colleges, universities, and in communities. And it participates in regional and national conferences and gatherings that promote and strengthen young people's engagement and activism. I think it would be neat to investigate how Cobb County might even partner with this organization. At the very least, I would love to try to acquire some of its notorious speakers, many of whom actively speak on topics of racial justice and education. They are all over the country, and I think it would be great to invite a speaker to my school for a future professional development. Finally, these speakers would also be incredible resources for our gifted students, as many love to work with youth engagement and social justice and global citizenship. This concludes my presentation. I've really enjoyed working with all of you this semester. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to your feedback.